What's going on, everybody? This is Jerome Moore, host and creator of Deep Dish Conversations. And firstly, I want to say thank you for all love and support, and thank you for exploring the perspectives of social change with me on this platform. I want to encourage you all to like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube and on your favorite podcast listen platform. And make sure you give us a 5-star rating if you're loving the Deep Dish Conversations. I appreciate all of the support again. I hope you all enjoy this episode. Johnny, how you doing? Welcome to the platform.
Well, thank you, Jerome. I appreciate that. It's good to be here today. I appreciate every opportunity to talk to people, and I thank you for this chance to reach out.
Yeah, no. I appreciate you reaching out and giving me the opportunity to give you this interview to talk about your candidacy for Chancery Court Part 3.
Right.
Your situation is a little different, but it's not out of the norm for voters to have to write in the candidates' names, which I want to get into.
Yeah.
But you are a Nashville native.
I am.
And I always enjoy talking to those like myself that are from Nashville, and especially from Nashville that's a little older, from a different generation of Nashville as well. And so let's talk about that just a little bit, growing up here in Nashville, and what were some of your kind of final moments that you remember of being just a native Nashvilleian?
Well, I tell people that I've been living in Nashville since John Kennedy was president. Okay, so that's been a while.
It's a long time.
Right. I started going to church down here at McKendree Methodist Church down on Church Street, not far from where we are. I just grew up in a fairly typical middle class white neighborhood. And then I started school at a separate but equal children made exclusively for white children. There was one black kid at our school, and he was the best dressed kid in the whole place. And I think his parents probably knew that he was being looked at.
Right.
But when I was in the fourth grade, when I was in the third grade, my teacher got up and she asked the whole class of little white children. And she says, "What are you going to do if they have this busing next year?" Well, one kid in the back got up and he says, "My daddy says we're moving to Texas." Now I thought, move to Texas?
Right.
What's that all about? Move to Texas, because they don't have busing there.
Right.
Well, the next year busing started. We started desegregation, and nothing happened. Me and the guys, we hung out. I sat next to Wendell Holmes and William Carruthers, and we had a great time. Right. We were friends. We played out on the playground together. The next year, I went to Head, which was a separate but equal school for black children. Same thing. Had a good time there, got along with everybody, and we were just too young to care.
Right.
We were friends, and we grew up friends, stayed friends. When I went to Washington, junior high school, I was one of two white boys on the track team. And that was kind of an interesting experience as well, because my first name is Leroy.
Right.
And so whenever Coach Tisdale was hollering at Leroy,
right.
He was talking to me. But, that was one of the things. And growing up in Nashville, it was a good experience. I always knew that Nashville was a good place. It's a great town. It's open. A little bit about my dad was a civil rights attorney here in Nashville also.
Oh, wow.
And he was the founding president of the first chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union in Tennessee.
Okay.
So I came from a little bit different perspective.
Right.
He was from Manhattan and had grown up in the Episcopalian church and went to Sewanee, where he met my mother.
Okay.
At a blind date, and she was from Nashville.
Okay.
And she didn't want to move to New Jersey, where he lived, and so she stayed here. But just growing up in Nashville was a good thing. It was a good thing for everybody, and made a lot of friends. A lot of those people I'm still friends with today. From high school.
It's always good to hear, and I went to Head too. It was different times, but it's good to hear, when other folks that have lived in Nashville and was born here way before I was probably thought of.
Right.
Just hear the stories. Excuse me, and hear the stories and just how Nashville was, and how a lot of stuff is different, but a lot of stuff is the same.
Right. Well, one of the things at Head, and I rode the bus. I spent probably 45 minutes on the bus every day riding to Head. And one day, Miss Hines was late. Bus 508 hadn't gotten there yet, and so me and some of the guys were in the back playground playing pick up and smear. And while we're out there, some older kids are walking home, walking down the street, and one of them yells out, "Get that white boy!" And I looked around for him and I went, "What the hell? They're talking to me."
Right.
You know? But my buddies were like, "You cool, Ellis. Come on, just keep playing." So, but that was the first time I'd ever been singled out
Right.
because I wasn't the same race as everybody else around me.
Right.
It would not be the last time
Right.
because I'm very comfortable in that environment.
Right.
I've been the only white boy at a lot of parties. We socialized a lot in high school,
Right.
you know, and I went to Hillsborough High School, which had natural boundaries.
Right.
You could go 5 miles one direction and be in Forest Hills, Green Hills. You go 5 miles the other direction and you'd be in Waverly Belmont.
Right.
It was before gentrification, you
Right.
know. My mother was a school teacher and taught at Woodbine, and anyway. So my perspective in Nashville is a little bit different.
Right.
My mother had grown up here her whole life, and my grandparents were here most of their whole lives. My grandmother was Margaret Stallman of the Stallman family, and they were German immigrants. And in fact, they tried to deport the Stallmans during World War I because they were enemy aliens. They were Germans.
Right.
We were fighting the Germans, and that was a problem. They weren't successful,
Right.
but yeah. So I've got a lot of history with Nashville.
Right.
I respect our history and our culture, and I'm looking forward to seeing how our future develops.
So, through all this experiences and this different lens that you're growing up through,
Right.
especially as a white child, as a white adolescent, how did this inspire you to get involved into the criminal legal system?
Well, I'm not really in the criminal legal system.
Right.
Right. I do.
Just the legal system in general, I guess. Then.
Well, the legal
or law, I should probably say.
Right. Well, I grew up doing wanting to be a TV weatherman.
You got the voice for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm Johnny Ellis with WUTK News. But that was kind of my thing. I was interested in broadcasting and communications and things
Okay.
like that. I was interested in politics from a very early age, just because there had been times where I thought there needed to be not necessarily a change, but we needed to tweak the system a little bit.
Okay.
And again, I do have a fairly different perspective from most straight middle-aged white men, just because of the fact that I spent several years being bused through neighborhoods that didn't look like mine. And some of those houses belonged to, where my friends lived.
Right.
And I just wanted to be able to get in there and provide opportunities. I mean, the world doesn't owe anybody a living,
Right.
but they owe everybody a chance to make a living.
Right.
And
true.
is right in politics and in the law, that's one of the things. Now, how did I get into the law?
Yeah.
Well, my dad was a lawyer, my grandfather was a lawyer, my great-grandfather was a lawyer,
3 generations.
my cousin's a lawyer, my uncle's a lawyer, my son's about to graduate from law school on Saturday. So the law was kind of in my family blood. And that's what we talked about at Thanksgiving and Christmas. We sit down, everybody talks about their cases.
Right.
Everybody loves to talk about their, 3 lawyers get together in a room, they're all talking about their cases.
Right.
Because you like to get ideas from people and try
Right.
to see, is there something I'm missing here? Is there an angle I haven't figured out? So when I got a scholarship to law school, I decided to take it. I mean, it's like, okay, it was the first full tuition scholarship at the National School of Law. My dad taught there for 39 years. And my grandfather had taught there for many years before as well. He was instrumental in getting Irvin Kilcrease into the school, at the
Right.
National School of Law, Night Law School, because when I got out of UT, I had started working in the mortgage business. And so I was already established. It wasn't like a straight transition into law school from college.
Right.
So I kind of had to, I had to go to night law school.
Right.
I was married, starting a family, bought a house, was already working, I had obligations. So there were things that made the night law school program very good for me.
Right. And so I know, when I look at your platform and stuff, you talk about, the vital need for experience.
Yeah.
Right. For this judge seat, right? Experience and needing experience and and having 25 years of experience and things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience that you have and how that translates into the Chancery Court?
Yeah. Well, the Chancery Court is a court of equity. Okay, so what that means is, for some areas of the law, there's a pretty clear-cut way to find a resolution. The light was green, the light was red. Either you broke your arm because somebody hit you with a car, or you didn't. Either there was an assault, whatever it is. Now, in Chancery Court, you're required to kind of fashion a remedy. You might, because every case, even though there's similarities to how it happened, every case has its own set of facts. And what the Chancery Court has to do is take those facts, prior law, and try to fashion a remedy, a resolution for a particular situation. Now, that applies to trademark, copyright, patent violations. If there's a strike, for instance, if there's a union strike, that applies. So the Chancery Court has a lot of authority. I mean, it's one of the most powerful courts in the city. Probably is, because you can actually put a restraining order on someone and make them stop doing something. Like if they were going to tear down a historic building to put up a McDonald's or whatever they're going to do here in Nashville, the Chancery Court is where you would go to get a restraining order to stop that. Now, with my years of experience, I spent, again, 6 years in the mortgage business before I got my law degree for a mortgage company. I was transferred all over. Knoxville, Oak Ridge, Rome, Georgia, Madison, and Murfreesboro. And then when I got out, I started doing title company work. I opened a title company and did real estate closings. That's another one of the things that the Chancery Court deals with. It's real estate issues, boundary line disputes, property ownership questions. So I operated the title company for many years and had kind of a light practice in litigation, but I did things that had to do with adverse possession of property and boundary line disputes. But the thing is, that is a foundation. Understanding the real estate side of things and title work is a foundation. Right. I had a jury verdict a few years later when I had gotten out of the title company and started doing just real estate litigation. So from about 2005 to the present is what I've done mostly is real estate litigation, probate work, contracts. I've defended trademarks. But anyway, I got out of the title side of it. And one of the clients that came into had been on automatic bank draft with his bank, Wells Fargo. And Wells Fargo had taken the money out of his bank account, but they had not applied it to his mortgage. And everywhere else he had gone, they wanted to tell him to file bankruptcy. It's like, but I'm not bankrupt. Right. Wells Fargo just lost his money. Right. So we filed that lawsuit and stopped the foreclosure one day before the foreclosure sale. And took 5 years to get it into court. I mean, Wells Fargo's got a big bankroll. Right. But this is a case, I didn't know if I was ever going to get paid or not. But I knew it was the right thing to do. And I understood what Wells Fargo had done. Right. Because I had been in the mortgage business myself, and I kind of saw what had happened. Right. But it took years to get that. Now, that was the 6th largest jury verdict in Davidson County in 2005. So we won the case, and he kept his house, and he got a little bit of extra. So that was one of the things. I've had several jury trials, which are unique in their own way. And all of the cases I've had before the Court of Appeals have been real estate related. And the Supreme Court case that I was successful with was a case that had to do with property ownership, joint tenants of right of survivorship, without boring you on the specifics of that. But a guy had gotten title to property through his grandmother, and there had been a prior deed, which was joint tenants with right of survivorship. And so the other joint tenant was arguing, well, the grandmother couldn't sever and break apart her ownership, but she could. And so we took that case. I lost it in the trial level. I lost it in the Court of Appeals. I went back and I researched the law back to the 1830s in Tennessee. Wow. In fact, even found Blackstone from 1765. I quoted 1765 law. Man, you gotta go down there. Got to go down that rabbit hole. But the court was persuaded. And the following year, I was asked to testify as an expert before the state legislature because they were planning on passing a law that would have affected joint tenants with right of survivorship,
Right.
and would have changed the way that we looked at that ownership style for over, 180 years,
Right.
200 years.
Wow. See, I'm glad you're breaking that down because I think, and I almost did at the beginning, when people think about court and thinking about law, I think people's mind automatically goes to criminal.
Right.
Because that's the sexy stuff, right? That's,
Right.
That's the stuff. But you bringing up really good points about Chancery Court. We talking about business,
Yeah.
right? We talking about especially business in a growing city like Nashville. And how, if you're trying to build something here,
Right.
or if you're trying to get something copyrighted, trademarked, or whatever it may be around business, they may potentially have to come talk to you.
Well, yeah, and I do. I represent a medium-sized business. They have $14 million a year in sales, roughly. They own 10 restaurants, and I'm their attorney. I set up their annual shareholders meetings. I review the budget with the president of the company. We look at things. We help plan marketing. Whenever there is a new location that we're going to open, I'm reviewing sometimes a 100-page lease. Some of these things are really awful, but, they're drawn up by lawyers in Chicago and New York and Houston and, Atlanta. So, it just comes with the territory. Right. So you have to start reading those things. A chancery lawyer's work is not really done in the courtroom.
Right.
Your main work is done at your desk and in the library and on the computer. Now, as far as the new construction things are going, I had another jury trial where my client was a home builder, and he had performed the job. He's built a 4,500 square foot house, but actually what he had done was he had added about 400 square feet, so it wound up being a 4,900 square foot house. But they never did a written change order. When you do these kinds of things, you're supposed to have an agreement with the homeowner or the property owner. Oh, by the way, we're making this adjustment. Right. He'd added square feet inside. He'd put on hardwoods where it didn't call for in the original plans. So there were a lot of things that had not strictly followed the terms of the original agreement. So they got 75 or 80% finished with the job, and my client said, "Well, you owe me some money." Well, the homeowner said, "We didn't agree to that," and he wasn't going to pay him. So my client stopped progress on the job and said, "If you're not going to pay me, I'm not going to finish the job because I did all this extra work."
Right.
So anyway, the long and the short of that was it went to trial. I don't know why, but it did. It went to trial, and the jury found in favor of my client, and he got paid the additional money, less what it would have cost to finish the job. Because he didn't finish the job. There's no question about that. But he had a right. He had a reason not to finish the job. Right. When that trial was over, I had two members of the jury come out of the box and ask me for my business card. So, that was a signal that I had done a pretty good job as a lawyer in that jury case.
And so let me ask you this then, Johnny. Why? It seems like you're a pretty great attorney, pretty great lawyer, right?
Right.
Why now switch over in the run for judge?
Well, running for judge is something that we need a choice here in Nashville for all our judicial seats. There are a lot of offices that are being unchallenged, and that's probably unfortunate because I'm sure there are plenty of other qualified people out there that should be getting their issues and giving the citizens an opportunity, and that's happening a lot in other cases. But I have a lot of respect for the court system. Again, I'm a fifth generation lawyer, and so having grown up in that environment, I see the court system as something where people should come and be able to know that they'll be treated with respect and that the judge is going to be knowledgeable about the areas that they're going to be asked to make decisions on. Now, that's not to say that I'm going to, if I have to tell you that everybody is going to be listened to and everybody's going to get a fair shake in my court, well, if I have to tell you that, then it's not speaking to my character.
Right.
So I won't say that I'll listen to everybody. I don't think I need to.
Right.
But I will say that I will treat everybody's argument with respect and dignity and consider it. And that, again, that doesn't matter what the issue is.
Right.
It's just a matter of being informed, having some general knowledge of the field of practice that you're being asked to make a decision on is important.
Right.
I've got over 600 cases in just in circuit court and Chancery court here in Davidson County. That doesn't include outlying counties.
Right.
I've done trademark cases in Shelby County, in Sevier County, in Putnam County. So I have a client that it's Cinco de Mayo Mexican restaurant. They trademarked their name and their likeness, and when other places try to use Cinco de Mayo as a name for the restaurant to sell Mexican food, we have to sue them.
Right.
We have to say, wait a minute, we own that. We own that copyright,
Right.
that trademark. So, Chancery Court is more than just construction.
Right.
There's a lot more to it than just construction cases. But that's a big part.
Right.
But some construction cases are resolved in circuit court as well.
Right.
It's when the terms of the contract are ambiguous, or you can't read it and go, well, what does this mean?
Right.
And if you can't figure it out, then that's when you need to file it in Chancery Court, because that's where the chancellor has to make a remedy from the facts, the previous law, and the specifics of the case are very important, and every case is a little bit different. But it's not criminal law.
Right.
It's not
Right.
criminal. I mean, I tell people, if you want to go to jail, hire me as your criminal lawyer.
Right.
Because I'm not a very good criminal lawyer.
No,
I did a littering thing when I was real small. When I was a baby lawyer, I did a littering charge.
But I think that's really good for people to understand and know that all law is not criminal or doesn't deal with with anything criminality in general.
Right.
So with like probate, chancery, all these other courts are totally separate. But again, I think the sexy stuff, law, police, legal, people get locked up or whatever, but that's not all that deals with law. And so I want to also pivot into you mentioned that there should be other people running, and there's a lot of seats that's going unopposed, but you do have somebody that is running, another candidate, and what kind of separates you all from each other? What makes you essentially a better candidate than your opponent?
Well, Ms. Miles is a delightful lady. I think she's very smart. Apparently a pretty good lawyer, and I have nothing bad to say about her. The simple fact of the matter is that I didn't know what I was doing 7 years out of law school. I would never have been ready to take charge of a courtroom. I would certainly never have been ready to take charge of a chancery courtroom. You can't just put on a robe and start banging a hammer. There's just a little more to it than that. And if you have a jury case, jury cases have a lot of moving parts. You got the jury in, sometimes the lawyers want to have a discussion. The jury's got to go out. Picking the jury is a thing. When the jury wants to ask questions of the witnesses, that's something we allow now. But they have to hand that up to the judge, and then the judge might hand it over to the lawyers, and the lawyers can either ask the question or not. Now, I heard recently that one judge was letting the jurors ask questions directly. I'm not sure I'd like that. Right. But, that's a stick of dynamite.
Right.
Because a good lawyer usually knows the answer to a question before he asks it. The few times that I have not followed that rule, I was pretty sure about what the answer was going to be, but it's still one of those things where you start going, uh-oh, what's he going to say? And then if you come out with the right answer, you're very lucky. But It could just easily go the other way.
Right.
So But Nashville has been doing fine. You know, everybody wants to come to Nashville.
Right.
Everybody loves Nashville.
Right.
I don't really think we need somebody from Cincinnati to come and tell us exactly how things in Nashville ought to be done. You know, I've got a lot of history here and experience. I know how we got here
Right.
because I was part of it.
Right.
And I know where we are right now, and I think that gives me a better perspective moving forward on what we're going to be doing in the future. And I just don't think that the years of service, as a comparison, my experience with trials, with jury trials, with the diversity of cases that I've had, that's, you know, a big difference.
Right.
I have business experience because I advise business clients. I spent 6 years in the mortgage business, you know, and that requires evaluating people's finances, equity positions, doing appraisals, surveys. I'm one of the few lawyers that can read a survey and actually write the words out or look at the words on a meets and bounds description and draw the boundary lines because I can read a survey.
Right.
So these are just things that set us apart. It's just a level of experience and understanding that makes me a better qualified candidate. I mean, there are some things that you just can't learn in a book.
Thank you for that, Johnny. But I will say this. Are you worried about this election? Because when I go to vote, I won't see your name on the ballot.
Right.
You know, because you have been barred from the Democratic ticket. And I want you to talk about that too, so people
Right.
can understand that process. But you know, are you concerned about that because people are visual,
Yeah.
right? People are very visual, and so when people go and they want to be able to choose, and they don't want to do any extra work, right? Which is what they would have to do to vote with you,
Right.
So take us through the process on how you went on not being on the ticket and how you're now trying to, you know, get people to understand that, hey, you can still vote for me via this way.
Right.
On May 3rd. Well, early voting is now through the 28th. May 3rd is the voting day, and also in August.
Right. Well, the write-in process is remarkably easy. It probably takes an average of about 8 seconds, maybe 10, to push the write-in button. A keyboard pops up, and you type in Johnny Ellis and push OK. That takes about 8 seconds. The term of office for a chancellor is 8 years.
It's almost a decade. That's why this is important. 8 years is a long time.
8 years is a long time. Now, so if you spend 8 seconds, you know, to get an 8-year result, I think it's probably worth the extra time.
Right.
Now, how this happened? See, I was really flabbergasted when the Democratic Party kicked me out. Because I mean, I voted for Jimmy Carter, you know, I voted for Michael Dukakis and Al Gore and Walter Mondale. I voted for Barack Obama. You know, I have consistently voted for Democratic presidential candidates. I voted in 26 years. I voted in 4 Republican primaries, 4. Mm-hmm. So, and here lately, I did vote in 2 Republican primaries because, I mean, the Democrats didn't have anybody running for governor. You know, there's 1 candidate running for governor and 6 candidates running for governor on the Republican ticket. To me, I'm realistic enough to realize that Tennessee is going to elect a Republican governor, so I want the Republican that is the least objectionable to me.
Right, yeah.
So yes, I voted in Republican primaries, but I filed my petition. I qualified. In a very short period of time, people were talking. But when I hadn't even turned my petition in, and someone had stopped my cousin, who's also a lawyer, and had said, "I hear your cousin is running for chancellor." You know, and they're like, people are excited about it. So it was really getting traction because in 25 years you get to know people. I mean, I know a lot of lawyers. I know a lot of members of the bench. You know, I've been in the trenches with them. You know, I was a grunt lawyer and coming up through the ranks, you just
Right.
meet people. And so people were excited to know a name they recognized, a person that they could trust on the bench was in the race. So I turned my ballot in and qualified as a Democrat. And then after the deadline for me to pull my papers and file as an independent, because the Republicans would have kicked me out too. They're kicking people out. I voted in too many Democratic primaries. But I could have run as an on-the-ballot independent if I'd known what they were challenging me for. But they said, you voted in Republican primaries. I said that Hillary Clinton was not a good presidential candidate in 2016. This was before the election, before Donald Trump was elected. I said, I don't think Hillary's got this. She's not a very good candidate. She's not as likable as Bill, and she's not. It's a true statement. I'd also said that I didn't think it was a good idea to support riots in Portland and Milwaukee and then expect the Republicans to be quiet in January, in Washington. So
Right.
if you that riots is not a good way to have political protest. I don't think that's helpful, and so I generally oppose that. But if you do it one way, don't be surprised when it goes the other way. If it's okay for one party or one group to have violent protests, well, apparently that's not a Democratic position. I think the Democratic Party has moved much further left than I have. I've moved a little bit to the right, and the Democratic Party kicked me off the ballot. So that means, and that since they told me after the time for me to refile as an independent, I'm not on the ballot at all. But I'm still running.
Right.
I qualified as a write-in candidate. You have to qualify even to be a write-in. If everybody wrote me in tomorrow,
Right.
in early voting, if I got, 20,000 votes, that none of them would count because you have to qualify and let the Election Commission know that you intend to run a write-in campaign. So as soon as I got kicked off, I thought, well, one of the other candidates, Dave Ridings, also got kicked off for voting in Republican primaries. And he filed a lawsuit to be put back on the ballot. And I thought, well, if the Democratic Party doesn't want me, okay, that's fine.
Right.
I mean, I'm not an ultra-conservative kind of guy.
Right.
And that's just not my history. Again, I grew up in a pretty liberal household.
Right.
If your dad's the founder of the American Civil Liberties Union, which he was, I grew up in a pretty open-minded home. If you went to school in North Nashville, elementary school and junior high school in North Nashville, and got bused, there during the period of desegregation, you have a perspective that is not going to be ultra right-wing. But I'm not ultra left-wing either. I'm not, and frankly, I think it's a good thing for a judge to be independent, independent-minded, not have any preconceived ideas,
Right.
to give everyone a fair shake. I don't have any party platform I have an obligation to, which is a good thing, not left or right. I don't have to look over my shoulder and go, well, is this going to meet the Republican Party or Democratic Party guidelines? Will I get kicked off the ballot next year if I, rule in this way? Because they did that to Ellen Lyle when she made the right decision.
Right.
She made the right decision by allowing absentee ballots. But the legislature called her on the carpet and made her come up and justify, and called for an investigation. So she was one of the hardest working, best chancellors, that we got. She's always prepared. She always asked intelligent questions.
Right.
Not that other judges don't. I'm not saying that. But she was a very good chancellor. And because of that one decision, the Republican legislature called her on the carpet and grilled her. And, the legislature's getting involved with things more than they should. But if you have to worry about whether or not you're going to offend some powerful political party person,
Right.
then you really can't do your job right.
And so how do you feel like this will, ultimately play a part in the results in the election? Being that they have to, they can see one candidate's name and easily boop, or, take that extra 8 seconds to type in your name.
Right.
Do you think that's going to ultimately, be a huge part of whether you win or lose?
Well, yeah, it'll be a huge part. Yeah, it will be a big part. And so I have a major obstacle in terms of getting people's information in their hands about what's going on, why I'm running. It's the fact that I just I guess I'm just too independent, and they want to kick me off.
Right. What have been some of the ways you've been able to navigate that, like being able to still campaign and still tell people, hey, what have been some of your tactics to still get voters that want to support you,
Sure.
to know that, hey, you still can. It's not over. I do qualify as a write-in candidate, and this is how you do that.
Right. Well, I mean, as an independent, I'm able to cross the boundaries.
Right.
I can go to Democratic parties. I can go to Republican parties.
Right.
And I talk at both of those groups. Now, I'm not talking to the extremes on either end, but I am talking to what I like to think is the meaty core of both parties. I don't think most people are extremes on either way.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it requires a lot more foot traffic, a lot more shoe leather, getting out there, meeting people, trying to just stay plugged into as many different things as I can.
Right.
So I'm not confined.
Right.
But yes, it's a learning curve. It's something that, and right now people are asking me, Johnny, how do I write you in?
Right.
And I have to explain to them, it's the August ballot. It's July early voting and the August ballot. I say, you can practice.
Right.
They can practice writing me in right now,
Right.
but it won't count until the August election.
Okay. And so this is good information here, because I didn't even know this. So if I was to go to vote right now, and it's you and Aisha Miles on the ballot, it does not count.
If you write me in,
Okay.
if you were to write me in, because where you see Aisha,
Right.
okay, is Chancery Court Part 3. Aisha's name is where mine should be.
Okay.
So you push the write-in button and
Right.
type in my name, Johnny Ellis. So, yes, if during the primary,
Okay.
because we're picking party.
Right.
This is a party primary.
Right.
And I've been kicked out of the party. They told me I'm not a Democrat anymore.
Okay.
So, and even if I had, you could, if I hadn't registered as a Democrat prior, I could have asked to be a write-in on the Republican ticket and get 25 write-ins and then not appear as a Republican.
Okay.
However, because I already filed
For a Democrat.
as a Democrat, I can't back up and then go, well, oh, nope, sorry, I forgot. I'm really Republican.
Right.
So,
Okay. So for you, July
early voting,
and then August on
August 4th.
August 4th is the most important days for people to write in.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I just want to make that clear for the viewers and the listeners. July early voting, and then August 4th voting day is most important for you to write in Johnny Ellis's name, if that's the way you would like to vote. Cool. I'm glad you made that clear.
Yeah, and I'm all over the county. I mean, I'm everywhere. It's a big county.
Right.
But no, I'm going to a dinner tonight where I'm going to meet with some people.
Okay.
And it's probably a more conservative group than I would have met at John A's or some other place. But
Right.
I got to get votes where I can get them, and that's just
The way it is.
that's the way it is, man. I got to work harder, but that's okay. I don't
Right.
mind. I mean, when I was at UT, I was in a boxing tournament. When I got punched in the face, what'd I do?
Punch back.
Punch back.
Yeah.
That's right.
Hopefully.
No.
Most people don't punch back.
No,
But
I mean,
yeah.
if the Democratic Party or the people that trolled my Facebook post to find these little things that I'd said in private comments to my friends, if they thought kicking me off the ballot was going to make me stop, they don't understand me.
Right.
Because the court is an important place.
Right.
And it's important to have experience and understanding and have a judge that has already reviewed the issues before they come to them the very first time.
Right.
You don't want the judge's first exposure to a particular issue to be when they read the lawyer's brief and go, oh, wow, huh.
Right. And so, speaking of social media, Facebook,
Yeah.
is there anything that you would like to address around that particular topic, around people stalking your posts and finding things or comments? that you had said in private and using them against you?
Well, some of them yes, and some of them no.
Right.
I mean, because what they didn't show you are my complaints about George Floyd, okay? Because I knew that Derek Chauvin was going to have, he was going to get arrested. I mean, anybody who saw that video is going to know that.
Right.
They didn't post anything about that or how you fix that problem,
Right.
okay? So, or any of my Facebook, I've got a Facebook page that I've been running for several years. It's called White People Care Too.
Okay.
Hashtag WPCT. Okay, white people do care. When people get shot during an arrest and killed, and if it's a white officer shooting a black man, if it's a black officer shooting a white man, it's more frequently a white officer shooting a black man, which is what we see the most of. And so that's one of the things that I've spoken out about that didn't get included. When Philando Castile got shot, here's a guy who has gone to the trouble to get a concealed carry permit. And as soon as he tells the cop, I have a concealed carry permit, he gets shot and killed in his own car. That's unacceptable. So, how do you fix that?
Right.
I can fix that.
Right.
You want to know how you fix that?
How you fix that?
Okay, here you go. What do people value? Okay? They via their homes, their family, their children, and their wallet.
Right.
People value their wallet a lot.
That money.
So when you hit people in the wallet, that is when their behavior is going to change.
Right.
So what I would propose is, the whole reason this is happening is because there's qualified immunity for anything a police officer does while he's on the job.
Which is stand your ground on steroids.
Right.
Pretty much.
Right. And see, so the community has been approaching this from the wrong angle, like it's a black community problem. And I'm like, well, it's a problem for the black community, but what could this kid have done faster? Raise his hand faster?
Right.
No. that's not the answer.
Right.
The answer is to hold police officers. Well, what you would do is you would bond every police officer to the tune of, $500,000 or something like that.
Right.
So that would be part of their compensation package. Every police officer has a $500,000 bond. If you wrongfully shoot someone,
That's gone.
that $500,000 bond or whatever amount gets paid to the family who was killed, okay, of the person that was killed. So number one, and if it's in excess of $500,000, then the police officer is looking at his own house or something like that.
Right.
But Derek Chauvin, what's the first thing he did? What's the very first thing he did, Derek Chauvin?
I don't know what is the first thing
After he killed George Floyd, okay, he got a divorce. Who got all the property in that divorce, Jerome?
His wife.
His wife. So George Floyd's family's got nothing to get from Derek Chauvin because the wife already got it all in the divorce. Now this was smart thinking, okay, by Derek Chauvin of trying to save, his wife's money or whatever.
Right.
Okay, that is strategic thinking.
Right.
If he had a bond, you can't run out on the bond.
Right.
If the policeman has to have a bond for shooting somebody wrongfully or killing somebody, breaking their neck, suffocating them, Anyway, that ain't right, Jerome.
And so I got a question for you. In Chancery Court, because you talk about how you grew up in your lens, and also just having a judge that can be equitable, fair. What does equitability looks like in Chancery Court? Because we know on the criminal legal system side that black and brown folks are, arrested more, incarcerated more. It just, and poor folks, right? Whether they can't afford a good attorney, afford a cash bail, or whatever it may be.
Right.
What does equitability look like in Chancery Court to make sure that there aren't those type of disparities that we see on the criminal side of law? Because again, that's the sexy part. So we may not know, on the Chancery Court side, what does discrimination look like? Are black and brown folks getting the same type of judgments and same type of resources, or is it comes down to like, hey, if you're poor, like, maybe you can fight this, maybe you can't. Like, what does that look like?
It does look like that, Jerome.
Okay.
There are a lot of poor people who are getting screwed.
Okay.
They just are. And that's one of the things. I have a lot of people that just don't pay me, and I do it because they need the help. I don't do it because I'm expecting to get paid. But there are a lot of people who I've helped over the years that just don't have the money but are in a really bad spot. And there's no one way for people to get screwed. People get screwed all kinds. There's new creative ways to screw somebody. Somebody right now is off thinking about a way to cheat somebody.
Right.
Okay, right this minute.
Right.
So how does that happen? Now you talk about black and brown people being put in jail, at higher percentages, and a lot of that is very true. But it's also true that they don't lawyer up as much. Okay, if you don't hire a lawyer, even a junior lawyer
Right.
to help you out of the spot that you're in, you're going to have a bad result. The same thing's true in Chancery Court.
Okay.
Okay? So the same thing's true in Chancery. You got to lawyer up. Now, if you say, well, we need more chancellors, of color. We need a black chancellor. Let me just say it. We need a black chancellor, a black woman chancellor, something like that. For people to have confidence in the system, we need, Russell Perkins is a black chancellor. He went to Head. He went to Washington, same schools I went to. And, he's from Nashville. Why do we have to have, a black chancellor in court? Why is that an important thing to do? I mean, we say maybe that's a social progress thing that we're trying to do, or is it for people to have confidence? They want to be able to see that there is someone that reflects their identity, their racial identity,
Right.
and that may or may not be their personal and individual identity. That person may look like them,
Right.
but may have gone to some private school somewhere and not really appreciate the roots from where that person came from.
Right.
And how's that supposed to work anyway?
Right.
I mean, you don't know if you're going to get the black chancellor or not. I mean, when the lawyer files the lawsuit, does the clerk ask, I'm sorry, is your client black or white?
Right.
Because if they're black, they have to go to the black judge.
Right.
How does that work? It doesn't work like that.
Okay.
It's random.
Right.
It's better to have somebody whose head and whose heart is with the community as opposed to somebody who can just talk the talk.
And so you bring up like lawyering up in the resources.
Yeah.
So how if I know I'm being done wrong or somebody trying to screw me over and I don't have the money to get a great lawyer like you, right? What are the resources? What are the options? Or what is the power that you have as potentially judge if you see that I have a case but I can't properly represent myself, or the representation that as a junior lawyer is not properly representing me, because again, I just may be poor, but I might be
right.
I may have a case and I know I've done wrong, but I don't have the adequate money to maybe lawyer up or get the proper representation that I know I deserve and need to actually win this case.
Right. Because people get defrauded all the time.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest problems. When you get defrauded, you're getting defrauded of your money.
Right. So as potentially as Chancery Court judge, if you see that I can't afford representation, right? What power do you have to, one? Because I know on the criminal side, right, a judge can appoint me an attorney. Is that the same case in Chancery Court, or is it something that it has to come out of my pocket, and it's nothing that the city or the state can do for me when it comes to representation?
Well, this is where the lawyer that you approach has to know the law.
Okay. Because
not all types of wrongs allow you to recover attorney's fees.
Okay.
I've got a guy right now who was tricked into signing a deed. Okay, and he's just not a very sophisticated man. He trusted somebody, and they put a piece of paper in front of his hand, and he signed it. I think he thought he was getting a loan, but what he effectively did was sign away the rights to his house. And so now somebody else has come along, evicted him out of his own house, and he's faced with the problem of, how do I get my house back?
Right.
So with a situation like that, and that's kind of similar to what my Supreme Court case was like, the lawyer has to be creative enough to figure out how they're going to get paid at the end of the day.
Right.
Because, I mean, my dad fought a case for 10 years against the Hartsville nuclear plant. And, you know, he got paid $12,000, I mean, for 10 years of work.
Right.
I mean, even in 1976.
That wasn't a lot.
That wasn't a lot of money.
Yeah, not for 10 years of work.
But, I mean, the answer to your question is no. You can't appoint a lawyer
Okay.
To that. But you can make recommendations to the legislature
Okay.
and say, here are problems that we need to address. We need to open up a vehicle for litigants to be able to recover attorneys' fees if they're successful in their case.
Right.
Now, that would bring in other lawyers that are willing to take a risk on this. My Wells Fargo case, okay? There's no law that says I would have gotten attorney's fees if I
Right.
didn't win that case.
Right.
You know, I took it because I knew it was the right thing to do. I understood what had happened. I had confidence in myself.
Okay.
It was good facts. I was able to support it, and we were able to win the case. But with that case, you know, I put a lien on his real estate. I said, here's the deal.
Right.
You know, you're going to pay me X, okay? And if we lose the case,
Right.
I've got, you know, I get nothing because your house is getting foreclosed on.
Okay.
If we win the case, then my mortgage, my lien on your property is good, and I will get paid.
So,
You have to be creative.
Yeah,
The lawyer
okay.
has to be creative, and the poor litigant just has to keep looking because, I mean, there's nobody, there's no Google search that says, you know, lawyerwhotakescrazyclients.com.
right. 8 years is a long time.
Yeah.
If elected, you know, to Chancery Court Judge Part 3, what does 8 years look like for Nashville with you at that seat?
Well, one of the things that's important, Nashville is growing and dynamic, and things are changing. We've got things that are being built. There are going to be issues. There are going to be condemnation lawsuits because the city is going to want to take people's property for some of these projects that they're doing. Now, I'm offended by that. When the government tries to take someone's home, and more houses are getting crowded out. You know, when I went to HEAD, it was before gentrification, and now those houses over there are $500,000 houses.
Right.
When I was in school, you know, 1973, when I was at HEAD Elementary School, there was not, you know, the whole block wasn't worth $500,000. So what things are going to look like is that if the state wants your money, wants your property, you're going to get a fair amount of money for that. You're going to get well compensated if the state has to take your property. If you're involved with a contract problem, because we're building this $2 billion stadium, perhaps,
Right.
I mean, there will be problems there, and,
Right.
and a lot of those are going to be because of ambiguities in a contract. If the contract is ambiguous, it's going to come into Chancery Court. Now, those things, you know, are going to be weighed individually, and we'll see how that comes out. But I mean, everybody is going to have a fair hearing in that kind of thing, and copyrights. Again, that's a big thing here in Nashville. Nashville's got a lot of songwriters, a lot of musicians, so copyrights are going to be protected. You know, if somebody comes in and steals the lyrics off somebody and they make a hit record off of it, you know, they should be compensated if that language or if that tune or something was stolen.
Right.
These are things. If you have an administrative law hearing that gets appealed to Chancery Court,
Right.
you know, my lens is, you know, from the dirt of the town, man. I mean, I've got the dirt in between my toes from this
Right.
city, and I've been here my whole life. You know,
Right.
played in the creeks. You know, had rock fights.
Right.
You know, I've enjoyed the town, and I love the city. So nobody ever had to tell me Nashville was the it city.
Right.
I've known it. I mean, I've seen this progress coming for a long time. Nashville's going to stay the course. We're going to stay on the course of progression that we've had. We're going to be open. We're going to be accepting. We're going to continue to be a progressive town. And with me as the Chancellor of Chancery Court, Part 3, I'm going to continue to try to see that we stay on that track.
Johnny, I appreciate your time. I want to give you the last word of how can people support, reach out to you, find out about your platform, heading into election.
Mm-hmm. Well, my Facebook page is Johnny for Judge. It's the number 4. Johnny for Judge is on Facebook. My website is electjohnnyellis.com. You can write me in during the primary if you just want to practice how to do that. That's as good a time as any to do that. And with either of those places, you can actually, you can donate to the campaign. You can get a sign in your yard. You can work a poll with me. You can get a T-shirt, really cool T-shirts, or maybe a free ink pen. You never know. I mean, we depending on how committed you are, it's what kind of prize you get. But no, the bottom line is that this is an important race. The Chancery Court is an important court. That we need somebody with experience on the bench. My overall total experience, my experience in life, my experience with Nashville, my experience with the law, my experience with life, my experience with Nashville, my experience with the law make me a better candidate. I mean, I'm not intrinsically better than any other person in the town. I'm not better than you, Jerome. I'm not better than, guy down the street.
Right.
I'm a guy that knows his job. And I know how to do this job as chancellor. It's dangerous if you have someone who doesn't know what they don't know, who's trying to be the chancellor for this particular position. So I would ask for you to, the party has kicked me out, and I'm asking you to write me in. It just takes a minute. When you see Chancery Court Part 3, push right in and type in Johnny Ellis. The keyboard will pop in. You type Johnny Ellis and push OK. Do that in July. Do that in August. And Nashville will stay on the same track that it's been for the last 20 years. And everybody seems to like that because people are coming here and staying.
Right. We need a just and equitable Nashville, and we need a just and equitable judge, whoever they may be. So, thank you, Johnny, for your time. Thank you for just breaking all of this down for us, and just your process during this campaign.
Right.
And just giving us a little bit of history about your experience and just about your footing here and the roots here of Nashville, which I appreciate because I'm a Nashvilleian as well. It's appreciated. And so, thank you for your time. Good luck.
Thank you.
And regardless of what happens, I definitely want you to come back and talk more about these things that are just happening here in Nashville socially that we are all affected by, albeit on different levels. But I think people will appreciate your takes and your perspectives, and just who you are. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that a lot, and I look forward to coming back anytime you'd like to have me.
Cool. Hey, y'all heard him say it, right? You got to hold him to it. Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you.